really pleased and happy to be here. I will try to stick to my time. My problem is that I always get very excited about whatever it is I'm talking about, and I start to improvise, and off we go. So I've asked Carmen and Diana and Melissa to give me a 1-minute warning, because I can address some of it at the end if necessary. Out of all of that gobbledygook that you heard in my autobiography, I think the most important thing, maybe that I'm most proud of, is that I've been in the field of music therapy for 25 years. And I still do work with people clinically, if you want to use that word. I do still see clients or people for music therapy, but of course my job at Concordia is very busy with teaching and my research. And I'm going to start off by just talking about some research that is actually in progress. So it's not finished, that Ben and Julia were a part of. That was initiated because of the pandemic. I guess another thing I'd like to say about myself as a music therapist is that I really don't believe that there's one right way to practice music therapy. I think there are many different ways to practice music therapy, and I think they all have value. That being said, for myself, I tend to gravitate towards less medical approaches and more towards what I would call music-centered or resource-oriented approaches, where I focus more on developing individuals' creative potentials or their personal potentials. So in terms of my work with older adults, what I'm looking at in my music therapy work is I'm wanting them to realize their potential for living well. So however they define that personally, and whatever that means for them personally, and how can music help them realize their quality of life and life potential in whatever situation they find themselves, whether that's through clinical or community music therapy, but also beyond that through just engaging in music in their everyday lives, so outside of the therapy context. So the study that I'm going to talk about today, and I'm not going to use any PowerPoints, I want to try to put this in plain language, because I think one of the things that we do as researchers that's not great is not translate things into plain language, and then nobody knows what we're talking about, and it sounds really boring, and I want this to not sound boring. So I'm hoping that I can zoom some life into that. So one of the things that the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted for all of us, I think, and probably further exacerbated, was social isolation that is experienced by many people, but older adults in particular in various contexts. And I don't want to get into all of the benefits. We can talk about that. And one of my people who introduced me, I can't remember if it was Carmen or Diana, talked about, we know that music does have certain kinds of health and well-being benefits. There are a zillion articles published on this. I don't even think in some ways we need to do any more research on this. There are so many articles published on the health and well-being benefits of music and or music therapy for various segments of the older adult population. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, as has already been alluded to, there have been online community music, recreational and clinical music therapy programs that have moved online because it's a physically safe way to still engage with music, and viable as a way to promote cognitive or mental health or lessen feelings of social isolation for older adults in various contexts. So there's already publications coming out on that, where people, music therapists and community musicians, have had to just sort of grab the bull by the horns and provide this programming online. But we have a big problem that is a little bit different than art therapy. If you're looking at art therapy as a visual or tactile medium, is that there is a lag on almost all online platforms. So the collaborative online music making, if we wanted to sing together and unmute our mics, it would really be chaos, because we can't truly make music together or sing together in real time because of the lag that exists on Zoom and other online platforms. So the quality of the music is compromised. And so that obviously gives us a bit of a dilemma. So let me just back up a minute and talk about, oh no, I don't need to talk about that. I talked about that already. So one of the important things in music therapy, why we think music is beneficial, why we think music is either therapeutic, or why music has health and well-being benefits in many of our theoretical orientations, because the aesthetic components of the music experience are a key consideration with regard to how the benefits of music are realized. So what I mean is that the music experience needs to be enjoyable, and it needs to be musical, and it needs to be perceived in ways that in ways that we recognize it as good music, right? And if we don't recognize it as good music, that can be, we can have different opinions about what that means, but if the music is a lot of chaos and doesn't sound musical because of the Zoom lag, how is that compromise the health and well-being benefits of music? Also in music therapy, the relationships that develop through the music experience are also considered to be really important as part of why the music is therapy, or again, why the music is beneficial to people in terms of health and well-being. And those types of relationships are the relationships that an individual has with themselves. So music can really help to develop my own relationship with myself. Music can also help to develop my relationship with others. So if we're singing together or playing together, doing music, or even listening to music together, we can experience that together, and that kind of the relationships that we develop through music can be very positive for us. It's also about the relationship that we develop with music. So if I really learn how to engage with music by making music or listen to music deeply, then my relationship with music can be very therapeutic or healthful. And again, similar, the relationship that you develop with others' music. So these kinds of relationships that we feel are important in music therapy, and we don't know in an online format, because we're not in the same room together and because of the sound lag, how those elements are compromised. So we then don't know if the music experiences that we are offering online have the same kinds of health and well-being benefits as they would be if we are gathering in person. So, and then on top of that, we've got the technological components of Zoom and having to navigate those kinds of things. So how do those kinds of things affect our experience of engaging in music? So all of these things were what we were looking at in this study and continue to look at, because we have phase 2 coming up. How do those affect people's perceived health and well-being benefits of music? And in this case, it was looking at older adults' experiences. So we were looking at and continue to look at the perspectives of older adults in their participation in online music experiences. And so we looked at the 4 categories of music experiences that are typically how we organize them in music therapy. There are 4 types of experiences that everything we do more or less fits into. And these are called recreative experiences. So that's using familiar music or pre-composed music. Improvisational experiences, where we're making music up. Receptive music experiences, where we are listening to music and we're responding in a non-musical way. So we might dance, we might reflect, we might draw. Those are receptive experiences. And finally, compositional experiences, so where we compose music. So we looked at those technological, aesthetic, and relational aspects of music within each one of those 4 music experience categories. I do want to make a caveat, because people said they were really interested in hearing about how music therapy works. These were not considered and won't be considered in our next phase as music therapy sessions. We were just looking at music experiences in and of themselves, because we weren't looking at a systematic process of intervention to promote participants' health and well-being. We wanted to just understand their perspectives on the aesthetic, relational, and technological components of online group music activities that they participated in. Okay, so there was no, we might use this information for music therapy, but it's not limited to that, and it wasn't music therapy per se. And so also, as Carmen mentioned, the results of this are meant to guide a range of best practice guidelines for the facilitation of online music experiences for use in both music therapy practice, hopefully in future research where we do other kinds of online music experiences, but working with, say, caregivers and persons living with dementia, people living in long-term care, other kinds of individuals, persons living perhaps in rural communities that wouldn't be able to access a music program in their community. So we'll be looking at those kinds of things in future research. And we're also hoping that other recreational, social, or educational online music activities could also use these guidelines to provide better online music experiences. So that was kind of the purpose of our study. I'm just going to quickly tell you, and I'm almost done, my component. We had 8 people volunteer. We put out a call for recruitment through various email lists of the research centers that I'm a member of. And we had many people volunteer. And this is why we're having phase two. So we started off with 8 participants, 6 females, 2 males. And they had to have access to a computer or a tablet. They had to have a reliable internet connection. They had to be able to independently navigate Zoom on their own. So I just wanted to start with sort of a baseline of not too many issues to have to navigate. And they had to provide their own informed consent, but there was no previous musical knowledge or experience required. So what we did, I met with each one of them individually to gather some demographic information, and I asked them about their music preferences and their background experiences, just so I knew what kind of music they liked and what how they felt about their own musicality. And we used what they told us about their music preferences. We integrated into the music experiences that we provided, that we engaged with them in. They then attended 4 1.5 online group music experience sessions. We did them over a 2-week period. So I think we did Wednesday, Friday over 2 weeks. 1 week we did receptive, another week we did recreative, another week we did improvisational, and another session we did compositional. So we did a different kind of music experience in each session. And then after each one of those sessions, they had to complete an online survey to talk about how they experienced those music activities. In terms of the aesthetics, in terms of relationships, as I described them, and in terms of the technological advantages and challenges that they experienced in each one of those 4 sessions. And then after those 4 sessions were over, I met individually, again, with each one of the 8 participants and interviewed them about their experience of participating in these 4 sessions as a whole. And so everything's been transcribed. Thank you, Ben and Julia, for that. And I'm just in the process of integrating all of the data. I'm coding it. And basically, we are looking at those components, aesthetic, relational, and technological, and talking about how there were advantages and disadvantages from the perspectives of these participants in terms of those 4 types of experiences that I described. I can answer more specific questions about that if people want to know a little bit more. But what's going on now, after I finish reviewing this a little bit more next month, we're going to implement phase 2. We actually had 39 people respond to our recruitment call, and there's no way that we could include that many people in the study. So I limited it at 8, and even that was I think manageable with Ben and Julia being in those sessions with me. So we facilitated those music experiences together, and because there were 3 of us, I think we could handle 8 people on the screen. And maybe Victoria, you do more. And you're probably Wonder Woman in the work that you do, but that for research purposes, I wanted to be able to be a little bit of a control freak because I had to control some of the things that went on in a way that I wouldn't in a music therapy session. So most of those participants so 31, most of them agreed to be on the waiting list. So I'm just about to put out that call again, and I will take the first 8 again that respond and that are able to participate with the schedule that we will hand to them. So hopefully that will work out. We're going to do the same kind of thing. We'll slightly modify some of the ways we deliver the activities based on what we learned from phase 1. For example, I forgot to ask people how they were listening to the music experiences, like what kinds of speakers they were using. And I realized through my interviews that probably would have been an important thing to know from the get-go, because their experience of the aesthetic could be very different if they're just using their computer speakers versus some really fancy Bose speakers, right? So I'll include that. Or another thing that I need to be a little bit more careful of in phase 2 is I need to ask them how what screen, how they're viewing their screen. Are they looking at themselves? Or do they have everybody in a little box? Because how you relate to people on the screen is going to be very different depending on how you're looking at them. So little things like that we learned from phase 1 that are going to shift in phase 2, and we will run 4 sessions again. And the idea is to apply these results ultimately to create and evaluate both online and what I would also say hybrid music programs and music therapy programs for various segments of the older adult population in various contexts. And I've already got a grant application in to hopefully see how these results can be applied in another phase in a music therapy type of context. So you can just listen to this. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing right along. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. That's pretty easy. If you feel comfortable, I see Carly and her friend are already clapping. You can clap or sing along. Here we go, same words. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing right along. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. Okay, some of you are doing this already, but this time, rather than sing or clap, although clapping kind of counts, just move freely. Don't do anything painful. Just move freely a little bit to the music. You gotta move when the Spirit says move. You gotta move when the Spirit says move. When the Spirit says move, you gotta move right along. You gotta move when the Spirit says move. Okay, now we're gonna do another experience in the same song. And I'm gonna leave you some space. And you can either clap or tap or click your tongue any way that you can make noise. And I'm going to leave you spaces wherein you can make noise. Ready? You gotta play when the Spirit says play. You gotta play when the Spirit says play. When the Spirit says play, you gotta play right along. You gotta play when the Spirit says play. Now, I would like whoever feels comfortable to write in the chat or something you do that helps to pick up your mood, makes you feel like singing. Anything. Can anybody think of a word? Any one of you. Drink a coffee in the morning. Okay, I saw it, guys, but you might need to get me Tiana's next. I gotta drink a coffee in the morning. I gotta drink coffee in the morning. If I wanna pick up, yeah, if I wanna pick up, I gotta drink a coffee in the morning. Okay, so I saw Tiana's was breathe. Are we ready? We gotta breathe when the Spirit says breathe. We gotta breathe when the Spirit says breathe. Don't hyperventilate. When the Spirit says breathe, we gotta breathe right along. We gotta breathe when the Spirit says breathe. Stretch the next one. We've got to stretch when the Spirit says stretch. And you can do sound effects. Oh, we got to stretch when the Spirit says stretch. Oh. When the Spirit says stretch, we got to stretch it all out. We got to stretch when the spirit says stretch. We gotta go for a walk outside. We gotta go for a walk outside. When we walk outside, we feel a lot better. We gotta go for a walk outside. And while we're there, we'll see some flowers. And while we're there, we'll see some flowers. When we go for our walk, we're gonna see some flowers. Yes, we're gonna see some flowers. Now we're coming to the end of our song. Do whatever you want while we finish. We're gonna finish now to the end of our song. So let's make it a really big finish. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. To put that back into the perspective of the research, I'll try to define that for you. So at first I sang you a song. It's a pre-composed song. It's a song by Raffi, if anybody's wondering. And you were listening to a pre-composed piece of music. So you were having a receptive experience there because you were listening and you were trying to learn it, right? But you weren't really, some of you couldn't help it, you were participating, and that's okay. But then when I asked you to sing it, you were doing a recreative experience because you were using a piece of pre-composed music and you were singing or playing along with it. So you were clapping and you were doing something instrumental within the concept of something that's pre-composed, something that I didn't make up, that's already a piece of music that already exists. And then we went back to receptive experiences because your response to the music was non-musical. I asked you to move to the music and not to sing or play. But so that was another kind of receptive experience. And then I asked you to clap, but I left you a space and you could clap or tap or do anything you wanted. You could make up what you wanted to do in that space, and that's improvising because you're making up your own music on the spot there. And you could have also even used your voice if you wanted to. So I left you that space to make up music that wasn't part of the pre-composed piece music. So that was an improvisational experience. And then when you started putting things in the chat, you were songwriting, you were composing, so that I was using a pre-composed piece of music. So I was kind of combining a recreative experience with a compositional experience, because sometimes in our compositions, we also compose the music as well, but there you were composing lyrics. So those were the 4 kinds of overarching music experiences all jammed into one kind of interactive activity.